Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Padyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Asmadgurubhyo Namaha. Srutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Guru Ratmete Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Shri Medha Dakshinamurti Swamine Namaha. Om Sahana Vavato Sahana Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Bhadram Karne Vishrunuyaama Devah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatrah Sthirairangaye Stuštuvagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhasravah Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedah Swasti nastarchyo Arishthanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatirdhadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So, Namaste once again, everyone.
Namaste Guruji, Pranam.
Pranam, Namaste.
Namaste Guruji.
Namaste. So, we have entered the second Mundaka, first section, and we started last class in the first mantra. So, we will chant the mantra. All of you can unmute. Tadetat satyam.
Tadetat satyam.
Yatha.
Yatha.
Sudiptat.
Sudiptat.
Pavakat.
Pavakat.
Visphulingah.
Visphulingah.
Sahasrashah.
Sahasrashah.
Prabhavante. Sarupah. Tatha. Akshara avid. Aksharadvividah. Aksharadvividah.
Aksharadvividah.
Somya bhavah. Prajayante. Tatra cheva. Tatra cha eva. Apiyanti. So, after completing the second section of the first Mundaka, we entered into the first section of the second Mundaka in the last class. And Bhashyakara giving the introduction to this section. In fact, as I said, the introduction can be applied to the all remaining sections of the Upanishad. Very general introduction. Because now the whole topic of the Upanishad is changing. So Bhashyakara first presented the connection between what has been stated in the two sections of the first Mundaka and also what the Upanishad is now going to say in the remaining sections. So essentially, he pointed out that the previous sections mainly dealt with the topic of aparavidya and highlighted the limitations of aparavidya as a means for moksha. And moreover, the subject matter of aparavidya falls within samsara, and as long as one is pursuing aparavidya, he will not get liberated from samsara. Also, aparavidya and its results do not have any sara, any substance. And appearance wise, they are mithya alone. But despite not having any substance of its own, they appear to be real because they borrow the substance, the essence from Akshara Tattvam. And therefore, from the standpoint of the absolute truth, the essence of this samsara is Akshara Tattvam alone, which is otherwise known as Brahman. So Aksharam Brahma is the very saram, the adhishtanam of samsara. And the entire universe arises from this Akshara Brahman and also finally resolves into this Aksharam Brahman alone. And therefore, this Aksharam Brahman is Jagat Karanam. And then he said that this Nirgunam Brahma is also known as Purusha and Satyam, which terminology was introduced in the previous section. Then Bhashyakara brought out a very significant aspect of what is to follow. Drawing our attention to the profound question raised by the student Shonaka, which was, Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. What is that by knowing which everything else is as well known? And Bhashyakara said that Angiras, the teacher, is giving the answer to that question through these mantras. He said, Yat Akshara Tattvam Vijñāte. Knowing which Akshara Tattvam, Sarvam Idam Vijñātam Bhavati iti. Everything else becomes known. And the reason is because the world does not exist separate from that Brahman. And then we entered the first mantra of this section, which, as I said, straight away presents this Akshara Tattva. And I was discussing, and we were discussing rather, that this Akshara Tattvam or Brahman is presented in two ways in the Shastra. They are called Swarupa Lakshana and Tatastha Lakshana. Generally, we use the word Swarupa Lakshana for describing this Akshara Tattvam in terms of the essential nature of Brahman. And Tatastha Lakshana means the incidental definition of Brahman. For example, when Brahman is presented as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, this is Swarupa Lakshana. On the other hand, when Brahman is presented as Jagat Karanam, the Adhishtanam of the entire Jagat, as Sarvanyaha, as Sarvashaktiman, etc., that will be Tatastha Lakshanam because it is the introduction of Brahman with reference to the Jagat. So with the help of both Swarupa Lakshanam and Tatastha Lakshanam, Brahman is revealed in the Upanishad. And here in the beginning of this section, Brahman is revealed with the help of Tatastha Lakshana. And what is the Tatastha Lakshanam here? Jagat Karanam Brahma. And this is a very favorite topic of Shruti. Shruti somehow, likes to talk about creation. And that too, in many of the Upanishads is presented very poetically also. And the reason why Brahman is presented as Jagat Karanam is so much emphasized because then only we will understand that this Jagat which we are experiencing and which we find is too much for us to handle, that Jagat is non-separate from Brahman. In fact, this is the theme we are just now seeing in the 10th chapter, 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also. This Jagat is non-separate from Brahman, non-separate from Ishvara. There we define Brahman as both Abhinna Nimitta Upadhana Karana. And so, understanding that this Jagat is non-separate from Brahman, first is the purpose of the Upanishad, which eventually leads us to see, help us to see that all that is here is Brahman alone. Because Karyam is non-separate from Karanam. And therefore the whole world is nothing but this Brahman. Like all ornaments are nothing but gold. Similarly, all the objects, the so-called good objects and the so-called not good objects, all of them are Brahman. And these objects themselves do not have their own substance, their own existence. They depend upon Brahman to exist. And therefore all objects called the world is mithya. So this Karya Karana Prakriya, where Brahman is presented as Jagat Karanam, helps us to see that this world is non-separate from Brahman and is mithya because it does not have existence of its own. It is only an appearance. It is Brahman which is appearing with various names and forms. And when Brahman is seen as the Karanam of everything, I am also included in that everything, isn't it? So the next step will be what? It will be understanding that Brahman is consciousness and that is my true nature. Only then I will transcend my identity of name and form and understand that intrinsically I am Brahman alone. My name and form is mithya. All by my attributes which are attached to this name and form are also mithya. And therefore, I will land in the knowledge of Aham Brahmasmi. That is the vision of the Shruti. So, this is the prakriya of bringing us to this vision that I alone am everything. Why? Because I am Brahman and Brahman is everything and therefore I am everything. I hope you are following the logic. Thus, with the help of Karya Karana Prakriya, finally this Jignasu is led to have this vision that I alone am everything. I alone am in the form of this Jagat. I alone am. There is no second. Everything is born of me, sustained by me. Everything resolves back into me. That Advaya Brahman I am. And for conveying this vision, for imparting this vision, Shruti starts with presenting Brahman as Jagat Karanam. And that is what is done here in this mantra. The teacher says that Aksharam is Jagat Karanam, which was called Bhuta Yoni in the first section. If you recall, Nityam Vibhum Sarvagatam, then Sushrutam, Tadavyayam, Yad Bhuta Yonim, Paripashyanti Dhiraha. So Bhuta Yoni means Jagat Karan. And when we say this Jagat, it includes both living beings and non-living beings. Chetana Jiva hai as well as Achetana Jagat. So this Jiva and the Jada Padartha, all of them are born of this Brahman. How Jivas are born, etc. will be explained by Bhashyakara. And here in this mantra, the Jiva especially are presented as being born of that Akshara Tattvam, Brahman or Paramatma. Thus Paramatma will become Karanam, Jivatma will become Karyam. And since Jivas are born of Brahman, they have the same nature of Brahman, which is the Karanam. Karyam and Karanam have got superficially different nature. And that is the reason why we call them Karyam, Karanam separately. But intrinsically, essentially, both of them are of the same nature. Like the ocean and the waves, they have got superficially different nature. But essentially, both are water. Thus, finally, the Upanishad wants to reveal Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. That is the final objective of the Upanishad. And to present this idea that all the Jivas are born of Brahman, Shruti is here taking the example of fire and sparks. Fire is the Karanam and the sparks are Karyam. Fire is called Agnihi, spark is called Vispulinga. And between Agni and Vispulinga, what is the Sambandha? Karya Karana Sambandha. Agni is Karanam, Vispulinga, sparks are Karyam. Agni is Ekam, one, and Vispulinga, sparks are many. But even though they are superficially different in the form of Karyam and Karanam, essentially both are what? The same Agni Atmakam only. Their essential nature is one and the same. Both are Ushna Rupam and Prakasha Rupam. Agni is also hot, spark is also hot. So Ushnam is essential common nature of the both. Similarly, Prakasha also, Agni also glows, shines. The sparks, the Vispulinga is also glowing. And therefore, Prakasha is also Samanam. And similar is the nature of Jivatma and Paramatma. And thus, the Shruti leads us to Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. And therefore, to recognize that Aksharam, where do you have to go? Do you have to go to Kashi, Haridwar, Rishikesh, or even, Uttarakashi, etc., Kailasa? Nowhere. You don't need to go anywhere. Aksharam is nothing but the essential nature of Jivatma, only my essential nature. And the Upanishad wants us to understand this essentially. This is the aim of the Upanishad. And it is with this intention that the Upanishad begins Srishti Prakarana. So we are now entering the Srishti Prakaranam, where Paramatma is Karanam. All the Jivatmas as well as Achetana Vastu, they are all Karyam. So this is the gist of the mantra. So now we will see the word meanings of the mantra. Okay. Tadetat satyam. Tad means that. Etat means this. Satyam means truth. We have seen this number of times in the previous section also. So the first declaration of the Upanishad is, this is the real truth. That which was talked about earlier in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th mantra of the first section. And this which is going to be talked about in this section as the Paravidya Vishaya is Satyam, real, is the truth. But we may wonder that this Tadetat Satyam also came in the second section of the first chapter, and also the same word meaning was given, same wording was there. There also the first mantra started with Tadetat Satyam. So we may wonder how many Satyams are there. But we have to note one important point. There, Tadetat was in the sense of karma or karma phala. Karma is called Satyam, or sometimes karma phala is called Satyam. Why? Because karma phala definitely gives the result. So karma and karma phala were presented as Satyam. And here this Tadetat Aksharam Brahma, which is going to be presented, that is also presented as Satyam. It means we have got two Satyams. One is Karma Phala Rupa Satyam. Other is Akshara Brahma Satyam. And therefore what? Purva Pakshi will ask, where has your Advaitam gone? You have got duality. But you keep on talking about Advaitam, Advaitam, Advaitam. We keep saying non-dual, non-dual. But the Shruti itself is talking about duality. Very strong point. Therefore, Bhashyakara will explain that the karma and karma phala satyam talked about earlier is Vyavaharika Satyam. He will say that is Apekshikam Satyam. Satyam based on a particular fact, because of a particular situation. That karma phala definitely comes, but it does not exist forever. And here the Satyam talked about is Paramarthika Satyam, the absolute truth. So in the first case, karma and karma phala, it is a relative Satyam. It is the relative reality because It is in relation to a particular observer. It is like the example of dream world which we have discussed. With reference to the Swapna Drashta, the dreamer, the Swapna Prapancha, the dream world alone is Satyam. So it is Satyam from the standpoint of the dreamer, and therefore it is a relative Satyam. From the standpoint of the Veka, only waking world is Satyam and dream world is Mithya. But this waking world also gets negated in Brahmajnana state. And therefore, Satyam of the waking world, which is Vyavaharika Satyam, is also a relative Satyam from the standpoint of Paramarthika Satyam, which alone is absolute Satyam, the unnegatable Satyam, the only reality. Thus, from Advaitam standpoint, Paramarthika Satyam alone is the real Satyam. All other Satyams are relative Satyams. And if you recall, we have discussed three types of realities: Pratibhasika Satyam, Vyavaharika Satyam, and Paramarthika Satyam. So you should recall all those discussions. And therefore, our non-duality is not affected at all, because Mithya cannot affect the non-duality of Satyam. When I am alone in a room full of mirrors, there are so many reflections of my mind, but they do not affect my being one in the room. I am alone. Many reflections are there, but the plurality of the reflections does not affect my non-duality in the room. At no point in time do I get a doubt by looking at all the mirrors. Am I really alone in the room? I never get that doubt, isn't it? And that Satyam Brahma Aksharam is presented here as Jagat Karanam. Then the mantra says Yatha, just as. Sudiptat Pavakat means well kindled fire. Deepta means kindled, lighted. Sudipta means well kindled fire. Pavaka means fire. Punati iti pavakaha. Fire is called pavaka because of its purifying nature. Now, if you observe a homa kundam, big homa kundam are all there, some big, if you have attended some big yajnams, or even at home, if you, perform some yajnas, homam, etc., the priest will be kindling the fire and making it, well kindled. He will be offering, these cow dung cakes, some, sticks, the summit, and some wooden pieces, etc. And when the fire burns, there will be some crackling sounds, and there will be sparks which will be emerging from that fire. So those type of sparks are called Vispulinga. So the mantra says Vispulinga hai sahasrasha hai prabhavante sarupa hai. So as I said, Vispulinga means sparks. Sahasrasha means in thousands. Thousands means literally you will not start counting. Means many, numerous. In these cases, we must not take the literal meaning. Depending upon the size of the fire. So we should interpret the Sahasrasha as many. Prabhavante means are born, emerge out, come out. And what is the nature of these sparks? Sarupa hai. Sarupa hai means these sparks are having the same nature as that of fire. Whatever is the nature of the fire, the same nature the sparks have got. The fire has got prakasha and aushniam as its nature, light and heat. Similarly, these sparks also have got prakasha and aushniam. So sarupa hai of the same nature. So this is the example the Upanishad gives. Now the drashtanta. What is the principle behind this example? It says tatha, similarly. Aksharat vivida hai, somya bhava hai, prajayante. So tatha is said similarly, aksharat, from this imperishable reality called Brahman, vivida hai, bhava hai prajayante. The word somya after vivida is a sambodhana. So we should not connect somya with bhava. Somya is sambodhana. The guru is addressing the shishya. So hey Somya. Angiras is addressing Shaunaka. Hey Somya means oh good looking one, oh pleasing one. It is just like in English saying, my dear. Because the guru is pleased that the student is alert and keen to learn. And therefore, the guru is also inspired to teach. Then Vividaha Bhavaha. Vividaha means various, Bhavaha means beings. So various beings are Prajayante, are born. So here Bhavaha can be taken as all the objects of the world. That is, all the Panchabhutas are born. All the 14 lokas are born. Various living beings are also born. As we will see later, Bhashyakara takes the meaning of Bhava primarily as Jiva. But from Upati Drishtya, Jivas are born. Therefore, Prajayante. But we can take Bhava as all types of beings, living beings, non-living beings. But Bhashyakara is mainly emphasizing on the Jivas, living beings, because that is what matters. That is what, he wants to convey a particular idea. He wants to later connect the Jiva, Ishvara, Aikyam through this mantra. The Bhashyakara, whenever he does something, whenever he does a restricted interpretation, there is a purpose behind it. Because ultimately what we have to understand, Aham Brahmasmi. Isn't it? That is what will deliver moksha. If you understand this table is Brahman or the laptop is Brahman, that is not going to give you moksha. That is also true. That is Satyam. But ultimately the problem lies with me. So the solution also should lie with me only. I am the one who is suffering the samsara. So I should be the one who should be looking for moksha. And therefore, the Jiva becomes the most important, the hero of this entire episode. And therefore, Bhashyakara is focusing only on the Jiva, mainly emphasizing on the Jivas, even though the word Bhava, we can take all, the entire Jagat we can take. Therefore, he takes a restricted meaning of Bhava Jiva. Vividaha, we have seen the meaning various of different types. So of different types means what? Jiva hai of different types. Deva Rupa Jiva hai, Manushya Rupa Jiva hai, Yaksha Rupa Jiva hai, Stavara Rupa Jiva hai, Jangama Rupa Jiva hai, all various types of Jivas. In Manushya also there are so many varieties. Gender-based variety is there, Varna-based variety is there. So different Jivas, they are all born. And Tatra cha eva apiyanti. Cha means and. So many Jivas are born, and Tatra there. Tatra means there. There means into that Akshara Tattvam alone. Eva alone. Apiyanti, they resolve. So all the Jivas are born of that Akshara Tattvam, and all of them merge back into the Akshara Tattvam, otherwise known as Ishvara. So they are all born of this Ishvara Akshara Tattvam, and they are merging back into this Brahma Akshara Tattvam. And here it says Jivas are born, which means what? If we analyze, Jiva is nothing but consciousness. And this Akshara Brahma is also consciousness. So from this consciousness Akshara, this consciousness Jiva are born. Again, we have into a problem. And many people have, many other philosophers, they are not able to actually, understand all these subtleties which the Upanishads bring out. Because if you say, out of the Akshara Tattva consciousness, the Jiva consciousness is born, and Jivas are so many. There are varieties of Jivas. What will it mean? That means there is one consciousness which is the mother consciousness, and there are so many other small consciousness. So there is one Atma, Paramatma, and there are different Jivatmas. So not only duality, we will end up in plurality also. One main Atma and lot of subsidiary Atmas. And therefore, we have to understand all these things very subtly. So when it is said, Jivas are born, and Jivas are nothing but consciousness, they are not really born. When the body is born, the Upadhi is born, then the birth of this body is transferred to this consciousness, and this consciousness gets the name of Jiva. And we say Jiva is born. Now, like the example we saw, the spark is nothing but fire only, heat principle alone. But with reference to the particular Upadhi, with reference to the Upadhi of that small particle, we call it a spark. But the spark is nothing but fire. So what is there is only one fire, but depending upon the birth of the Upadhi, we say the spark is born. Another example we can see, ocean and waves, or let us take another different example. You know, during rainy season, we would have seen, outside our window and all. When the rain falls, bubbles are formed. The rain water will be there, bubbles will be there. And as children, we used to watch those bubbles, they will slowly float and then pluck, they will vanish. What are those bubbles? They are nothing but the rainwater only. But we will say, oh, there are so many bubbles, beautiful. So the bubbles we say are born, it's an expression we use, but essentially the bubbles are nothing but rainwater because they appear their appearance is different from the rainwater, the drops of rainwater. We give them a name bubble and think that they are all born out of rainwater. Essentially, both are water only. So, similarly, we have to understand, depending upon the birth of the body, we say the jiva is born. So, by this mantra, what is suggested is Upadhi Drishtya. From the standpoint of the Upadhi, Jiva and Ishvara have got Karya Karana Sambandha. The Jivas and Ishvara have got cause-effect relationship. But from Swarupa Drishtya, from the standpoint of the nature, very nature, intrinsic nature, Jiva is Ishvara alone. Because Ishvara is consciousness, Jiva is consciousness, and there is no Karya Karana Sambandha. There is only one consciousness which gets the name of Karana because of some Upadhi, which gets the name of Karyam because of some other Upadhi. What is there is only one non-dual Brahma Chaitanyam, one consciousness which is called Brahman. This is the message of this mantra. So, Vachyartha Drishtya, Upadhi Drishtya, Vedaha Asti. Swarupa Drishtya, there is no Vedaha, Abhedaha Asti. That message is given through this mantra. Okay. Now let us see the Bhashyam. Again, it's a little long Bhashyam. We will read. Yad aparavidya vishayam
Yad aparavidya vishayam
Paravidyam
karma phala lakshanam
karma phala
Karma
lakshanam
Phala Lakshanam
satyam
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 tad apekshikam
tad
Tad
apekshikam
Apekshikam
idam tu
Idam Tu
paravidya vishayam
paravidya vishayam
Vishayam
paramartha sallakshanatvat
paramartha sallakshanatvat
Tva
tadetat satyam
tadetat satyam
Satyam
yatha bhutam
yatha bhutam
Bhutam
vidya vishayam
vidya vishayam
Vishayam
avidya vishayatvacha
avidya vishayatvacha
Vachva
anritam
anrutam
Anratam
itarat
itarat
Itarate
atyanta parokshatvat
atyanta paroktatvat
Paroktatvat
katham nama
katham nama
Nama
pratyakshavat
pratyakshavat
Bhavate
satyamaksharam
satyamaksharam
Sharam
pratipadyeranniti
pratipatyerannithi
Iti
drishtantamaha
drishtantamaha
Maha
yatha sudiptat
yatha sudiptat
Tat
sushtu deeptat
suštudiptat
Tat
iddat
iddat
Nidat
pavakat
पावकात्
पावकात्
अग्नेः
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 विस्फुलिङ्गाः
विस्फुलिङ्गाः
लिङ्गाः
अग्नेयवयवाः
अग्न्यवयवाः
अग्नयवाः
सहस्रशः
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 अनेकशः
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 प्रभवन्ते
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 निर्गच्छन्ति
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 स्वरूपाः
स्वरूपाः
रूपाः
अग्निसंलक्षणा एव
अग्निसंरक्षणा एव
लक्षणायेव
तथा
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 तलक्षणाद्
उक्तलक्षणात्
लक्षणात्
अक्षरात् विविधाः
अक्षराद्विविधाः
नानादेहोपाधिभेदमनो
नानादेहोपाधिभेदमनो
विधीयमानत्वात्
विधीयमानत्वात्
विविधाः
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 हे सौम्य
हे सौम्य
सौम्य
भावाः
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 जीवाः
जीवाः
आकाशात् इव
आकाशात्
आकाशात्
घटादिसम्परिच्छिन्नाः
घटादिपरिच्छिन्नाः
It's not some by mistake I said घटादिपरिच्छिन्नाः
घटादिपरिच्छिन्नाः
सुशिरभेदाः
सुशिरभेदाः
घटाद्युपाधिप्रभेदम्
घटाद्युपाधिप्रभेदम्
अनुभवन्ति
अनुभवन्ति
एवं नानानामरूप
एवं
नामरूप
कृतदेहोपाधि प्रभवम् मनो
देहोपाधिप्रभवम् अनु
नमो
प्रजायन्ते
प्रजायन्ते
तत्र चैव
तत्र चैव
तस्मिन् एवाक्षरे
तस्मिन् एवाक्षरे
अपि यन्ति
अपि यन्ति
देहोपाधिविलयमनो
देहोपाधिविलयमनो
दीयन्ते
दीयन्ते
घटादिविलयमनो
घटादिविलयमनो
इव सुशिरभेदाः
इव सुशिरभेदाः
यथा आकाशस्य
यथा आकाशस्य
सुशिरभेदोत्पत्ति
सुशिरभेदोत्पत्ति
प्रलयनिमित्तत्वम्
प्रलयमितत्वम्
घटाद्युपाधिकृतमेव
घटाद्युपाधिकृतमेव
तद्वत्
तद्वत्
अक्षरस्यापि
अक्षरस्यापि
नामरूपकृत
नामरूपकृत
देहोपाधिनिमित्तमेव
देहोपाधिनिमित्तमेव
जीवोत्पत्ति
जीवोत्पत्ति
प्रलयनिमित्तत्वम् Very good. It's a long bhashyam. Need some water. So we will take the first two sentences. Yat aparavidya vishayam karmaphala lakshanam satyam tad apekshikam. idam tu paravidya vishayam paramartha sallakshanatvat. Tadetat satyam yata bhutam vidya vishayam. So as I said earlier, tat etat satyam part is explained by Bhashyakara in these two lines. Right at the beginning of the Bhashyam, Bhashyakara realizes that this will create a doubt. Because in the previous chapter, second section, Upanishad started with the same Tadetat Satyam in the context of Karma Upasana Phalam. Because there the topic was Aparavidya. And while introducing Karma Upasana Phalam, which is in the form of various lokas, there also the Upanishad said all these karma phalams are satyam, tadetat satyam. So there also tadetat satyam it was said. Here also it says tadetat satyam. Therefore 14 lokas are satyam. Aksharam Brahma is also satyam. So does it mean everything is satyam? Very good point for Purva Pakshi. So if Anatma is also satyam, Atma is also satyam, why should you criticize only that people who follow the Anatma or who are actually take Anatma as satyam as what? Muda hai, pramuda hai, etc. It was the description in the previous section. Because they are also thinking everything is satyam. You also, so-called Vedantins also say Brahman satyam. That is satyam, this is satyam. But you choose to criticize only those people who are Anatma followers. And you are not criticizing this Brahman Vedantins, even though both are Satyam. Valid point, isn't it? But this is all the problem we will encounter when we study on our own. Many times when we study with the commentary of Bhashyakara or even with some other commentaries, then we are bound to get a lot of confusion. But without that, if we only read the mantras and some English translation, somebody must have done some English translation, you get confused if you are a serious student. If you are a time pass student, doesn't matter. Okay, that is also Satyam, this is also Satyam. Sab kuch chalta hai. That, attitude, then no problem. So Bhashyakara says that both are Satyam only. But remember, one is Vyavaharika Satyam, which is a very nice name for Mithya. Because this Vyavaharika Satyam concept has come much later, not at the time when the Upanishads were being composed. These are all Vyavaharika Satyam, mainly Bhashyakara doesn't use the word Vyavaharika Satyam. But later Acharyas have actually, in order to differentiate, to convey the ideas, they come up with three grades of reality, three, I would say, levels of reality. Basically, other than Pratibhasika Satyam, everything else is Mithya. So, Vyavaharika Satyam also means Mithya, relative reality, which we have seen just now. Whereas hereafter, we are not entering the relative reality, but we are entering the absolute reality. And that he explains in the beginning itself. That this Tadetat Satyam is different from the Tadetat Satyam of mantra 1.2.1. He said that Satyam is different and this Satyam which is being talked about is different. So he clarifies. What does he say? Yad aparavidya vishayam karmaphala lakshanam satyam tad apekshikam. Yad, that yad, which is aparavidya vishayam, the subject matter of the lower knowledge. That aparavidya, which is karmaphala lakshanam, which is in the form of karma and phala, or which is in the form, you can say, of the results of karma. As I said, karma is also called satyam in the context of karma kanda and phala. So karma is also satyam, karma phala is also satyam. So both we can take meanings, and when Bhashyakara says karma phala lakshanam, where karma hyphen phala hyphen lakshanam is put. So the karma phala lakshanam, both we can, interpretation we can take. So both karma lakshanam and karma phala lakshanam. So the subject matter of aparavidya, which is in the form of action and its result, is satyam. It is also real, but that is apekshikam. Apekshikam means relative. In relation to something, they are truth. So subject matter of aparavidya in the form of karma phala is relatively real, is relative truth. That means it is called satyam with reference to the fact that it is definitely going to take place. Karma will give definitely the result. So in terms of being definite in its occurrence, it is called satyam. But that is a relative satyam. So it is not absolute satyam. Why? Because those karmas and karma phalas are negatable in terms of time. So they are there now. Afterwards, they will not be there. And therefore, they are not absolutely real, but relatively real. So, apekshikam. Apekshikam means kinchit apekshaya vartate. That which is there with reference to some apeksha, some expectation, some happening, some occurrence. Therefore, it is called apekshikam. So, karma phala lakshanam aparavidya vishayam is relative truth or relative reality. Whereas, idam tu means whereas. Idam means this. What is this? Which is paravidya vishayam, which is the subject matter of higher knowledge, is paramartha sat lakshanatvad, because of being of the nature of absolute existence. Paramartha means absolute. Sat means pure existence. Lakshanam means swarupa, nature. So because of being the nature of absolute existence, and why absolute existence? Time-wise, it is beyond time. It was true in the past, it is true now, it will be true in the future. That is what we call Paramarthika Satyam. So because of being the nature of absolute existence, this Paravidya Vishayam, the subject matter of Paravidya, is Paramarthika Satyam. And what do we mean by absolute existence? Swami Paramarthanandaji gives a very comprehensive definition. That which is not a part, product, or property of any object. It is an independent entity which pervades and lends existence, which is not limited by the boundary of the object, which continues to exist even after the world disintegrates, and which surviving existence is not accessible because of the lack of medium. So this Sat is different from the Asti Jayate, belong to Shadvikara. When we are talking about the sixfold modification, Asti Jayate Vardate, Viparinimate, Apakshiyate, Vinashyati, etc., there the word Asti is Vyavaharika Sat, relative existence, Savikara Sat. Whereas this Sat is what? Not one of the six modifications. It is Nirvikara Sat. So Savikara Sat is Vyavaharika Satyam. Nirvikara Sat is Paramartika Satyam. So he says Paramartha Sat Lakshanatvat Atyantika Satyam, absolute existence. We can supply Atyantika, Satyam to complete the sentence. Okay. We'll continue in the next class. Time is up. Just see the prayers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Dhanyavad hai. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Guruji.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಗುರುಜಿ.
Namaskaram.
Dhanyavad. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Namaste. Getting
Hari Om, Guruji. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Guruji.
Thank you, Guruji.
Hari Om. So the talks are getting heavier and heavier. That is
So
what
it
this
takes,
Upanishad is all about.
so it takes time to sink in, and so no questions.
You take not once listening is not enough.
No, many times, every time you listen, you have something new coming up.
It will happen. That is why it is called a secret Shastra. For some people, even if they listen a number of times, they will not understand anything. So,
No, listening, understanding is okay, but then accepting is something very,
yes,
very different.
that is the second stage. That is the second stage, because the concept itself is not there,
Yes.
So once you are not used to the concept of looking at things in two dimensions, then understanding itself becomes difficult.
No, you look at it in two-dimensional or multi-dimensional, but then the crux is that it's unidimensional.
Yeah, crux is unidimensional. Correct.
Yes.
So that is what it is. Anyway.
Okay.
Any other question, discussion, doubt? Nothing seems to be there. So we can close the session. See you next Monday. Hari Om. Thank you very much, all of you.